I really think that there's no way of denying the fact that there's nobody that knows Star Wars more than George Lucas himself, the creator of Star Wars, who started this franchise back in 1977. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, one thing that we do know about the Star Wars franchise is that Disney and Lucasfilm are currently put in a position where they are forced to satisfy the fans. They are trying to reunite the Star Wars fan base since they were divided over The Last Jedi. And one of their big plans in doing this is, of course, by providing us a very authentic new Star Wars universe that's going to be modeled after the old one and is going to gain inspiration from the MCU and exactly how that works in the actual movies and in the actual MCU lore and stuff around that. So when we look at everything here by Disney and Lucasfilm and what they're really trying to do, they realize the success of Marvel and they want to do the same exact thing here with their new Star Wars trilogy, their Disney Plus Star Wars TV series, and new projects to come like video games, books, and novels that are all going to interconnect with each other. Now, obviously Bob Iger wants to leave behind a great legacy of his own as Disney, as a successful man for running Star Wars and Marvel and other, properties out there. And when we think about Bob Iger, yes, he did have a role in some of the Star Wars divide. There's no doubt about that. But when we look at everything related to, Episode 9, this was the first step of developing new Star Wars lore. Now, what's really intriguing about all of this has all to do with George Lucas. Now that both Disney and Lucasfilm are currently finished with The Rise of Skywalker, they are moving on to their new Star Wars trilogy as well as their new Star Wars universe that will take Star Wars fans into a new direction. Now that Disney and Lucasfilm are trying to fix the Star Wars franchise, they are said to be doing everything necessary of what they can do to satisfy many of the fans around the world. It's noted that one of the big plans by Lucasfilm is to involve George Lucas to take control over some of the creative decisions with the future of Star Wars for their new universe, and that George will actually be involved in the writing of the new Star Wars trilogy alongside with the main writers that will be chosen very soon. Now, it's explained that Disney wants George to be a part of the new Star Wars films in order to also have George come on board, to have some form of creative control over the new Star Wars universe for the fans, where it's noted that George Lucas and his involvement is part of Disney's strategy in order to reunite the fan base and to actually make their future films and TV shows as enjoyable as possible for Star Wars. Now, this is said to have been a decision made by Disney CEO Bob Iger in order to take care of the franchise before he leaves next year, and that Lucasfilm will play a major role in developing the new Star Wars trilogy of films to be released in the near future by Lucasfilm. Now, it's explained that Disney also wants George to actually be a part of bringing in Star Wars legends into these new Star Wars films to make them as authentic for the hardcore fans as possible. So, the thing about this new Star Wars expanded universe that I think is a big risk at the end of the day is the fact that they are going to model it after the old one and are going to be inspired by the old stories back in the 1990s and the early 2000s before Disney took over Lucasfilm in 2012, the very start of the 2010s. Now, when we look at everything related to what they have been doing here, obviously, this is a desperate move. I don't think that this is a genuine move to include George Lucas. There's no doubt about it that they really are in full damage control mode. From what I realize here is that George Lucas, they know that he is the man that can catch lightning in a bottle again if he puts his mind to it. Say what you will about the prequels, but the prequels were very different and it still felt like Star Wars. Something that Disney Star Wars, to me, it just feels a little off. It almost feels like it's a little bit Marvelized at times when it comes to the comedy, and the way it's structured sometimes falls out of place with the Star Wars universe. That's all I have to really say. But when we look at what they're trying to do with, of course, Disney and Lucasfilm and the Star Wars brand overall, and what they're really trying to do with the new Star Wars universe on Disney Plus, how George is going to be involved and how he's actually going to take control over many of the creative decisions to be made for these new Star Wars projects over Kathleen Kennedy, and we'll be working closely with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. To me, I think it's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's no denying this. Whenever you hear about George Lucas, that just means good news, in my opinion, at least. So, what they're really trying to do here, like I say, when you look at the Star Wars franchise, obviously there needs to be fixing. Some of you guys out there may disagree with me on this, but The Last Jedi really caused a big divide between fans, and a lot of fans had issues with that. And ever since, Star Wars wasn't just the same. At least the Star Wars fandom hasn't been quite the same since then. And people argue, alright, give it 10 or 20 years and we're going to look at the Disney Star Wars trilogy in a different way. I don't really necessarily believe in that. I think it is what it is, and it's not going to change how we view these Star Wars movies, regardless of how, much time passes by. Because the prequels, at the end of the day, it had consistency, it was different, it had brand new characters, it was just a different take on Star Wars. So, with that being said, guys, like I say, I would like to know what you guys have to say about this. Do you think that this is a risky move by Disney and Lucasfilm, or do you think that this is a good move that they are trying to implement into the Star Wars franchise? Anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.